Let's talk about trauma. Not physical, maybe a little, but mostly psychological. It's Recovery Monday, brought to you by Powell, and that's today.
Open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope. Open my eyes to see the world through different eyes, revealing your light, restoring hope.
Good afternoon, 3 minutes past the hour on this Recovery Monday with RestoringHopeLive.com, of course, brought to you by the good folks at Powell CDC. The date on this show is the 20th of April. Not important. We're not going to talk about something that's timely, other than I wanted to thank all the folks that showed up to the Powell Alumni Banquet last Saturday night. It's our annual banquet. I believe we had 700 plus.
Yeah, about that.
About. Mm-hmm. And Lila, I know you're exhausted, but you did a great job in setting up all the... it seemed like we had more silent auction items than we usually have.
I think there were more small things, not so many big.
Yeah.
And they were kind of different items than we've had in the past.
Yeah, so that was nice. And if you attended, I appreciate you attending. If not, maybe you'll think about it next year. It's always in April. And it's at the Sheraton again, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a wonderful time, a great time to hang around 700 other people who are sober and hear some good speakers, hear a little comedy. And it's just a good night of fellowship.
You know, I sat, the lieutenant governor came, and I sat next to her. She was so much fun. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. What a nice, nice lady. I felt like she was just my girlfriend.
Yeah, no, she's a great gal.
Yeah.
Great gal. She goes to our church, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But every time I would say something, she'd turn around to her husband. She goes, God, this is my twin, because we have a whole bunch of things alike.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, she's a good lady. All right. Robert, nice to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Ryan is producing. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job. Couldn't do it without you. My guest today for the second time, and hopefully many more, Geral, no D, Blanchard. And he is a psychotherapist, which means he takes care of psychos like me. And he's an author. And his couple of his books, I'm going to hold them up for those of you that are on the video. Ancient Ethics for Today's Healers. And then the one that we're really going to be talking about today, which is Transcending Trauma. Transcending Trauma. Post-traumatic growth following physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Geral T. Blanchard. All right, so both of those books available on Amazon.com, and you can order those, and I think probably by the end of the day you'll want to order. But you have one more. What's the one? You have three of them.
Actually, several more, but Ancient Ways is one we spoke of last time.
That's the one I was
about
thinking.
How indigenous cultures can influence and educate today's contemporary healers.
Yeah, okay. And today we're going to focus on trauma. Post-traumatic growth following physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. We talk about trauma, but how is it defined by the American psychological industry?
People regard trauma as any kind of unexpected adversity that befalls an individual, and when it becomes post-traumatic stress disorder, it's usually a result of some chronic, persistent features that linger on, including unwanted re-imaging or re-intrusive memories of the event, sometimes sleep disorders, depression, high anxiety, panic. So we all experience some form of trauma in our lives or some severe adversity. All of us do. The question is, does it just lead to post-traumatic stress, or does it lead to post-traumatic stress disorder? Or, as I would contend, sometimes it also leads to post-traumatic growth, a real thriving response.
Ooh. Tell me about that. Post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth, PTG, it's an argument I'm making in that new book, Transcending Trauma, that suggests not always does everyone who experiences trauma suffer indeterminately, forever, because of it. Not everyone merits a diagnosis of PTSD, but there are some individuals who don't just experience trauma and bounce back, There are some individuals who experience trauma and bounce forward. They thrive. They grow. They're strengthened or steeled, if you will, by the experience. They're made stronger by the challenges that they had to face.
Okay, but is that because they have some inner strength that no one else has, or they do that because a therapist like you would help them get through?
It could be both. Because we've noticed some similarities between people who are very resilient and do bounce back. And they seem to have some personality traits and family factors, life experiences that predispose them to move ahead. And then if you have a counselor who doesn't work just from the breakage model and can see that sometimes people have strengths to work with, then that can help. You know, psychology and psychiatry have followed the breakage model for some time. Last week I was telling you on the way over here that I was in Norrköping, Sweden, and I was teaching a group of folks there, and I said, "Do you folks know the Humpty Dumpty story?" And I said, "Can we recite it together?" And so we did it, and we said, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's psychiatrists couldn't put Humpty together again. And that's how we've looked at trauma for a long time, especially PTSD. We're good at spotting pathology, breakage, dysfunctions, diseases, disorders, but we're not highly skilled in spotting strengths, testing for them, and bringing them out in people. So if your only tool is a hammer, you're going to be looking for nails. And if your diagnostic manual has 570 choices, as ours does, all of them negative, all of them based on pathology, diseases, disorders, and dysfunctions, we're going to diss a lot of people. And not surprisingly, the name of our diagnostic manual is the DSM, the DISM.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do to people. We have no terms for mental health and ways to spot it. We have very few tests to spot it. But if you look for it and you talk to survivors of trauma, and in fact talk to thrivers after trauma, that's when you see there's some unique people here and they've had unique supportive help. It may come from a counselor. It may come from just some healthy friends.
This is why I like your approach, because it's different. I've noticed that it's different than a lot of therapists that I know that kind of keep you in the problem, in a sense. You're just kind of just in this spiral down and keep talking about the problem over and over and over, where my experience with you is that you're looking for the good that came out of the bad.
Indeed, and to build on your point just a little bit more, we as psychotherapists oftentimes do focus just on the problem, post-traumatic stress disorder being one of them. It becomes like a mantra. Mm-hmm. We repeat it. It becomes a part of our identity, and we think of PTSD as the last stop on a dead-end street.
Yeah.
But post-traumatic stress disorder can be the engine that drives growth. It can be the catalyst that pushes people forward. Nobody ever said that growth doesn't accompany suffering. Usually growth follows suffering in most human beings.
But I think people have to be told that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I just expected my life not to have any problems, you know? But I didn't know that you could, I mean, I know that now, that you can have growth out of problems. But I don't think I knew that at a young age at all.
At least 75% of us are going to go through a severe adversity in life, what we in our culture call trauma. And most all of us will not merit a PTSD diagnosis. Like most soldiers coming home, over 85% of them do not even momentarily meet the criteria for PTSD diagnosis. But if all we look for and expect and talk about is PTSD, we're going to find the breakage we're looking for. Mm-hmm. My travels to other cultures have shown me that not all cultures look at adversity and suffering as we do. Not everyone calls it trauma and sees it as a lasting condition. They just see it as a part of life. And
so they're taught that from the time they're little.
Some cultures, when they're very little, I can think of, the Geral people of the Andes in Peru. They expose children to death at a very early stage in their life. Death to animals, death to relatives. so that the kids get to see suffering and anguish and realize that, oh, it happens, we can expect it, and people will go past it, move past it. So then when the next problem comes along, like they fall and break an arm, that doesn't seem anywhere near as severe as the big one they conquered at an early age, that big one being death.
Death, yeah.
So it's about dealing with fears, and what gives rise to trauma oftentimes is an incomprehensible, very fearful event that occurred to us that we had no preparation for, catches us off guard, sometimes even leaves us feeling as though our life is being threatened. So we have to recognize that a lot of us are going to go through that, whether it be in a motorcycle wreck, whether it be as a part of a shooting, whether it's part of sexual assault, rape, a robbery. There are many circumstances that can give rise to that cumulative group of sentiments and feelings. The key is this, though. This is huge. Trauma in and of itself does not cause injury. There's nothing inherent in a scary event or in suffering that will destroy people. The real destructive force comes from our thinking. How we look at it, how we regard it, how we talk about it. Our reaction to trauma is key. Some people are very responsive after an event. They have what I call the ability to be meaning makers. They're looking for the message, the insights, the purpose in life that comes from that experience. And those meaning makers are the people who generally do the best. I don't want to make this...
that's nice to know, because I'm always looking for the lessons. So I'm okay. Yes.
Well, and on that point, Lila, some people will say, you know, that happened to me, this trauma happened to me because of fate, or it was God's plan for me, or, you know, everything happens for a purpose. But those who do the best after trauma are the ones who say that I found meaning in my trauma. I went looking for it. In other words, I did the hard work of figuring out how I could possibly turn this into something positive.
Yeah.
So rather than just be responders to events, these are individuals who, I could say it better, rather than just being reactive to what happened, they respond to it with a flexible, explanatory style. In other words, they explain their story of trauma in a very flexible way, which says, here's what I'm going to make out of it.
So that includes maybe some good things with bad things in the event. Like they aren't just pulling out all the bad things.
Exactly, because some people will remember that, let's say, after the tornado went through town and we all underwent this huge trauma, people came from miles around to help us. They were cooking for us. They were helping us. I met strangers who were doing wonderful things for our family. Then the Red Cross showed up. People were there for me like never before. Boy, when you have a trauma, you know how loved and important you are. There are those experiences too. We have to see the full gamut, the full range of possibilities.
So why would you say some people, let's just take that tornado, for example. There's some people that just sit in the problem and just moan about that, and then it seems to get worse and worse, and they keep repeating themselves, and the problem gets worse. It was bigger than what actually happened to them.
Well, I'll answer that indirectly first.
Okay.
I was in the high Andes of Peru with a small group of people. Included in our small group was a woman from New York City. We were going to see 9 different healers, 9 different shamans along the way in our hike. And when we got to the first shaman, the woman from New York said to the shaman, I've been suffering my whole life because of what happened to me in childhood. I'm here to see if you can help me heal. And the shaman's reaction was, I don't even know you. But she felt that he had some magic for her. And she spent a long, long time talking about her childhood. We got to shaman number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And she'd always seek the attention of the shaman and tell her story again and again and again, always asking, what can be done to help me get past this? Word got ahead to shaman number 9, Don Pablo, and the other shaman said, watch for the lady from New York City.
Now, I want you to finish that story when we come back, because I want to hear what the lady from New York City finally was told.
Okay.
We are with Geral Blanchard. We'll be back live here on Recovery Monday on Restoring Hope Live.
A father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope.
21 minutes after the hour on this, the 20th day of April in the Lord's year 2015. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Our guest today is Geral Blanchard. He is a psychotherapist and author, several books, including, Ancient Ethics for Today's Healers, and also a book that refers to kind of what we're talking about today, Transcending Trauma, Post-Traumatic Growth Following Physical, Sexual, and Emotional Abuse. All right, so you're telling this story about this woman from New York who came to these Amans, Shamans.
Medicine men.
In what tribe?
They're the Q'ero people of the high Andes in Peru.
Okay. So from the high Andes in Peru, she came and she continued to tell her story, same story, to one medicine man after another. Why did she go on to another medicine man? Why didn't the first guy take care of it?
In that culture, first of all, they really don't understand the concept of trauma.
Okay.
They know that life brings suffering and that everyone has adversity, but they hadn't bought into the concept of trauma as our culture has done, as a lasting, indelible mark on our life story. So this woman's story had been told for years and years, and from shaman to shaman. We had 9 shamans we were visiting, and by the time she got into 8th shaman, we were all getting a little annoyed, I must say, because it was chewing up all our time. And somebody went ahead, one of the shamans went ahead to the 9th shaman, Don Pablo, and said, this is what you're going to run into. So she came. She started to talk about her serious abuse. No doubt about it. She underwent some painful experiences. And after she began telling her story, Don Pablo, with his gentle voice, kindly interrupted, and he said, I want to thank you for telling us your story of difficult childhood 8 times now. Now we have a 9th time for you to tell new story. What will your new story be? And she was puzzled by that. But what Don Pablo was really saying is, what are you going to make of what happened? Even, he wanted her to tell another story with a new ending, even if it was made up. He wanted her to experience what it would be like to fashion something positive out of a negative, painful set of life circumstances. And he encouraged her to do it. And when she was done, he said, and how do you feel? And she said, some better.
Oh, yeah.
Her mantra had been broken. Her story had been interrupted. That wasn't to say that she didn't go through something severe, but it wasn't doing her any good to tell that dead-ended story again and again and again. And that led Don Pablo to ask a very obvious question. He said, I understand you people have lots of traumas in your culture, and you only talk about them to strangers, and then you pay them money. Meaning psychotherapists. Yeah, we go to somebody who doesn't know us. They'll listen to us if we'll give them money, and that's somehow a recipe for healing. And the shamans couldn't believe that. That made no sense to them, because they're like family. We're always there for one another as friends. Wouldn't it be good to have a friend to talk to, was the question. And our research in the field of psychology shows that having a good, loyal, trustworthy friend is every bit as healing and powerful as a good psychotherapist. Now, that may not be good marketing for me, but it's the truth.
Well,
if you have a healthy friend, you have to have healthy friends.
Yeah, I can tell you that the therapy that I went through, I mean, I've been in and out of therapy since I was 5 or 6 years old. My parents sent me to somebody at 5 or 6. And I remember playing this plastic bowling game while he was talking to me in his office, and I'd set the pins up, and then I'd throw the ball. And they actually went back to my mom and dad and said, well, we can't find anything wrong with him. But there was. And it wasn't until I finally got to one guy who could explain it to me in a way that I had never heard it before. But he did it over, well, actually, he did it over 5 years. But I was going to say he did it little doses each week. And maybe some weeks there wasn't anything, okay? So I appreciated the way he digested and then presented to me in a way that I would understand. And I don't think I don't think I got lucky, Geral. I don't think I got lucky and went to a guy that talks the same language I did. I think this man spent a lot of time focusing on my love language, if I can use that term, to help heal it. And I've got good friends, but I don't know if I have that potential to help them in that way.
Well, that's one of the 2 keys I talked about in recovering from trauma. I said sometimes we have to be around meaning makers who can make sense of our life. And then, to use your word, Mac, they tend to have flexible, explanatory styles. Sometimes kids can't explain the great meaning and the profound growth or the diagnostic importance of what they're going through. So they need an adult who can help explain things and connect the dots. And then what I find happens, and we've got research out of Leeds University in London now that supports this, is people that undergo severe traumas tend, and who do well afterward, tend to show remarkable spiritual growth. And, it goes back to our last conversation. I wasn't necessarily referring to anything religious, but the spiritual growth about their sense of goodness in this world, their ability to trust the forces of life, the higher power, whatever you want to call it. But they come away from painful life circumstances cherishing things like they've never cherished them before, like human life, like friendships, like family. And in the site study in London, this is fascinating to me. They tried to define what trauma meant to people. and then tried to define what would constitute a severe trauma. And the severe traumas usually were defined as something that created so much fear in a person that they thought they were about to lose their life. So they found people who had undergone severe traumas and compared them to other people who had claimed trauma experiences. Here's what they learned. For the individual who underwent severe trauma, that person seemed to grow more than the person who had less severe trauma. But then when they looked at people who had undergone 2 severe traumas, they had grown more than the person who had just underwent 1. And ultimately and finally they looked at persons who had undergone 3 significant traumas in their life, and those are the people who had grew the most. They were challenged again and again, and with each trauma, they showed flexibility in their thinking, they found meaning in what was occurring, and they were stronger then to face the next one.
That's sort of like what we were talking about during the intermission. Bob has had that experience before. Why don't you tell that?
Yeah, well, I've been on a lot of different disasters. I've seen a lot of death. Had one early trauma, Sioux City air crash in Sioux City in 1989, that a lot of families died in that, 112 people, and young people, families and all, and that really hit me hard. And I thought I'd never recover from that. I thought I was going to change my occupation and do something different because I thought, hey, I've been doing homicide investigations for 10 years, and I've seen all kinds of death, in doing murder investigations. So why is this thing bothering me? I couldn't understand why I was feeling so terrible about that. But I learned, especially a year later when I met one of the family members that lost the person I was dealing with in death, that totally changed me because they thanked me for everything I did for them to bring closure to them, and that really made a difference in me. So then I was asked to be on another disaster team and been to a number of disasters that were pretty traumatic. And remember you mentioned spiritual? New York was a spiritual experience for me, big time. So I'm sitting here going, yeah, I hear you because I've lived it. That's been a big part of my life, going through trauma, and the more trauma I go through, it seems the stronger I get spiritually, and death doesn't affect me as much as it did initially. And so I accept it as part of life, and it's not a fear in that.
Well, could I ask you this? Without trying to impose the answer, but so many people have told me that when they've undergone powerful experiences like you've mentioned, they started wrestling with issues of purpose and meaning in their lives. And after undergoing traumas, firsthand or vicariously, living them through the survivors of traumas, that they developed a life that had much more purpose and meaning to it than before. Was that your experience?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm still on the DMORT team, and I've been on for 20 years. And people are saying, well, why don't you retire? Why don't you give it up? It's kind of like I have this drive. I don't want people to think I enjoy going to disasters. I don't. Because when I'm called to go, my usual response is, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to be up and work 15, 16-hour days, and I don't want to go sleepless nights. I don't want that. But as I'm saying no in my brain, I'm saying, sure, I'll go. When? Where? Because I get to meet the best people in the world. I know I get to help people. That is my drive to really make a difference in people's lives. So that's why I continue to do it. And so it's not that I like it. It's that it does make a difference, and that's important to me.
You also said that you experienced a trauma when you were 6 years old.
Correct. A train crash in New Jersey, 48 passengers drowned, and right outside our house. And I could see it, saw it all. It was on national television, even when I was 6. And my uncle was involved in it, and he had to deal with the bodies. And he would come back home very upset. And he was a very strong man, and I never saw a man cry before like that, and he did. And that really impacted me because it says, it's okay to have feelings and emotions as a man and actually show them. And so I learned from that, even in a young age, that it's okay to cry as a man when you're traumatized by what you experience.
Lesson. Well, so do kids are they more resilient than adults, or how does that work?
It's a good question. We seem to think that they are. It's another New York Times a story that I just read a short time ago, where not only are children resilient to most all traumas, sometimes what gets in the way of their recovery are parents. Parents who tend to overreact to what happened to the kids, and the kids take their lead from the parents.
Yeah.
Dad is just ferociously angry over that person that hurt you. He's going to get even. He doesn't like the hit he saw on the football field that you took, so he rushes out and punches out an athlete from the opposing team. The kids watch their parents, and the parents give the lead as to how this trauma should be handled and absorbed and integrated. And what I have learned, especially around sexual abuse of children, emotional and physical abuse of children, that if parents tend to underreact and allow their life to go on with predictable routines and cycles that they've known before, be very present for the child, but give that child a structure and hold them in those daily rituals and routines that the child is accustomed to, kids have an amazing ability to be resilient. Now, I think some people get nervous when I talk about that because they think maybe I'm minimizing the severity of the abuse. What I'm doing, though, is maximizing the resiliency of kids who weren't told you're going to be broken for the rest of your life by what happened. I can remember years ago watching an Oprah program, and this is an old one, but she said, she had a program on sexual abuse, and she said, you know, if you've been sexually abused as a child, odds are you're never going to be able to have a successful relationship as an adult. And I said to myself, oh my goodness, Oprah, where did you get that information?
Geral Blanchard is our guest today. He is a psychotherapist and author. We'll talk about his books and further trauma when we come back. And we'll finish the Oprah story.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
restoring hope. Open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope.
22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff with Westkirk Presbyterian Church. Yes, coming up today with Chris Roloff. Our guest today is Geral Blanchard. He is a psychotherapist and also an author. These are two of his 7 books. Did you say 7?
I got 8 now.
8 now, okay. Ancient Ethics for Today's Healers. And then there is Transcending Trauma, which is what we're talking about today. And I want to ask you in a minute, what causes this lasting trauma? But you got to finish the Oprah story. So Oprah says what to somebody?
Well, it was they were talking about child sexual abuse, and Oprah warned the audience, saying, "We know that if you were sexually abused as a child, you will always have an inability to have successful relationships throughout life." And that just stopped me in my tracks, because that's erroneous. It's not automatic. It isn't trauma that causes anything. It's our response to trauma that determines it, and what our culture says will happen to us. So our culture, through Oprah, was saying it will destroy you. Well, I'm sure it then did destroy some people.
Well, if I recall right, didn't Oprah later admit that she had been sexually assaulted as a child?
Indeed.
And she has a challenge with personal relationships.
Indeed. And she's since changed her thinking greatly, because she's heard so many inspirational stories from other people. But she opened up the dialogue on the subject, which was so important. If you're going to heal from trauma, you got to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
How you talk about it, and the questions you're asked and how adults react to you is so critical. It isn't that talk is magic, or that even a group is magical. It's how it's discussed in the group. And I can think of so many marvelous parents I've witnessed over the years who said, maybe to their child who'd been sexually abused, "I'm so proud of you. You marched right into the police department and talked to that officer. You showed so much courage. I'm amazed. I don't know that I could have done it as a child, yet you did." And the children are feeling pretty good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They had a challenge and they met it. In this day and age, when we give our children trophies for everything, for being participants, when they've actually done something strong, that's when we want to lock their identity around that resilient ability they have.
Geral Blanchard is our guest. He is a psychotherapist and an author. So tell me, what causes this lasting trauma?
Trauma impacts us in 4 primary areas, and how we address those 4 areas is critical. I'll be fast. The first way in which trauma can impact people is in the concept of betrayal. So if somebody I counted on wasn't there for me, if somebody tricked me, lied to me, manipulated me, used me, exploited me, that's all a betrayal of trust. So if we're not careful, then people will have trust problems thereafter. However, if they run into extraordinarily predictable, punctual, reliable, dependable, loyal people thereafter, they might have a corrective experience with people that will undo the potential for trauma.
Meaning they're too trusting? No, never mind.
Not trusting people because they were betrayed can be the trauma,
right?
The result of the trauma. But then if they bump into very reliable and dependable people, that can be a corrective experience for them.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, just like the prior had been a damaging experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The second area where trauma harms people is in powerlessness. I'm in a war zone. I don't know who's out there in the jungle. I don't know when things are going to explode around me. I don't know who's entering our house late at night. These things, or these situations where we don't have control over what's occurring, can leave us feeling very unsettled. And then we can have a life of anxiety and worry thereafter, not knowing what's going to happen next.
Can it be like children who are in an alcoholic home?
Yeah.
And they never know what the parent's how he's going to behave.
The chaos, the unpredictability, the explosiveness. So then what do we do in those situations? We try to empower people at every step of the way. So when someone who's a trauma victim comes to my office, I'll say to them, There's a number of things we could do here together. What would you like to do as a part of your therapy? I sort of set the buffet table, if you will, and I empower them to have the power to decide what our treatment will look like. Not always is it done. Last week I was in Sweden teaching this, and in Sweden there are pretty much 2 counseling models, and that's it. And I said there must be many counseling models because they all work if the patient believes in them. So we have to listen to the patient, what they believe in, give them voice. That gives them power to defeat the powerlessness. The third, stigmatization. Maybe I didn't do enough to step in a crisis to help someone. Maybe I didn't save a life when I had an opportunity. Maybe I didn't. Why did Dad pick me as his sexual assault victim rather than my sister or brother? When we wonder about our worth and feel like we did something wrong as a part of an abuse experience, if we feel damaged, dirty because of it, or because of what we've gone through, then my identity becomes negative. Then we call that stigmatization. Probably the worst thing we can do is be cheerleaders then for victims and say, oh, but you're so wonderful, you're so strong. If there's not evidence for it, they're going to think we're lying. If we're going to praise people who've had self-esteem damage, there's got to be some meat behind it. We are a culture of giving trophies for everything, awards for everything, and it's begun to lose its meaning. But when we catch our children doing well after a trauma, we got to be all over that and let them know that they've demonstrated effectiveness. And that's what self-esteem is made of, demonstrations of effectiveness.
All right, I want to ask you a question. I think we'll have time. Well, we'll have time to get to number 4. If you say to somebody, I'm really proud of you, you did a good job. If they answer, what did I do? Proud of me for? Is that an example of that stigmatization?
Yes, and it's also an example of them needing proof. They don't just need fluffy words. They want to know, what did I do to merit your praise?
Okay.
Because they start to doubt it.
Yeah. All right, number 4.
It can be traumatic sexualization, if we want to use the example of sexual abuse as the trauma. So maybe I was raped violently. Now I'm in a marital relationship and I have a tender, loving spouse. Let's say this is a woman's example. And she wants to make love with her husband. But when she does, she has great physical pain and goes to the doctor again and again, and the doctor finds nothing wrong. Sometimes when the original experience was very painful, we have what we call like a cellular memory, a body memory of what happened. So we resurrect the physical pain with our current, safe, loving partner. So to overcome traumatic sexualization, sometimes as a couple, people have to talk it through, work it through, and make separations between what was and what is. And I was asked this question last week in Sweden. Somebody said, how many people come to in the U.S., come to you for counseling to learn more about healthy sex? And I said, that's never happened. We feature breakage, and we only work on problems. And I said, if you pose the question to a group of people, what constitute healthy sex? They usually define it as the absence of something bad. So like if I were to ask, what's peace? I'd say, well, that's a condition of no war. But we don't have the wording to describe healthy sexuality or healthy touch. And that's part of what we need to do to treat people, to show that people can be trusted, they can be responsive to us, very different than the abuse experience.
Dr. Geral Blanchard, Geral, Geral Blanchard is my guest. He's a psychotherapist and an author. His books, many, many books, number 8 now, Ancient Ethics for Today's Healings. And also what we're talking about today is transcending trauma. And if you get a chance to look these up, please do. They're available on Amazon.com. All right, when we come back, we got 4. We got a number 4? Or did you give me 4?
We covered them all.
I'm going to have to go back and ask what 4 was. I didn't write it down. And also, Western culture. We seem to be freaked out about this a lot more than other cultures. Why is that? We're coming back live with Lila, Bob, Ryan, myself, and you. You're the most important person in this picture. Thanks for listening.
father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope.
Good afternoon. It's Recovery Monday here with Restoring Hope Live, brought to you by Powell CDC. When you need someone, because no one else seems to understand, no one else can pay attention, no one else seems to care about what those hurts, habits, and hang-ups are. Call Powell. Ask for Lila. Call me. Ask Mac. Call Bob. Call somebody. We do this show so you know you have somebody. I don't think that alcoholics and drug addicts or people who are suffering from deep trauma either are aware of it, and if they are, I don't think they're listening to this show. This show is about you, the one that has to live with it, the one that has to be married to it, the one that has to be a father or a parent to it, a best friend, a cubicle mate. That's what this is about. And yeah, it's a little deep. I suppose if you want to listen to something funny, you can go listen to Rush Limbaugh. I don't know. But if you want to learn how the body and the mind work together in a spiritual way, people like Geral Blanchard understand that. Now, I didn't write down the fourth one. Now, you told me it was traumatic sexualization.
Correct.
Tell me what that is again, please. I'm sorry. I was listening, but I was still on stigmatization.
Well, if using an example of sexual abuse as the trauma, if my body was used and my soul was used in a profane or physically harmful way, there might be a lasting effect on my ability to express healthy sexuality. So the treatment response is not to say, of course, that this will harm you for life, but rather to teach people that there are healthy forms of touch and get a dialogue going about what healthy sexuality looks like. Men who are married to women who have undergone sexual trauma, who want to restart their sex life, oftentimes get very physical with their spouses, wondering, well, should I do it faster, slower? What new position should I try? And things like that. And I'm suggesting that communication, safe presence, a willingness to just be physically close with non-sexual touch can pave the way for a resumption of a healthy sex life.
What about the situation? Well, that's not trauma at all, I guess. I'm thinking about situations when husbands and wives have been together a long time and they want to be together. They're married for life. It's just the way it works. But it doesn't work in the bedroom anymore. And, we blame I'm too fat, or I just don't feel like it anymore, or I've been through menopause, or what do we do with that? You're smiling. What was funny? That took a lot of guts for me to say that.
Why I'm smiling is I'm thinking fast on my feet, thinking, how can I tell this story without identifying anyone? But there is this elderly woman from a faraway state that I've looked in on for years. She's 89 now, but she was about 87 when she fell and broke her back. And she's married to a man who's now 93. And nothing was working for her physical healing from that trauma. And so she asked if I would work with her in an indigenous way, an old Mexican curanderismo form of folk medicine. I said, sure, I'll do that. Because she wanted it, I said I'd do it. Well, she couldn't change her clothes. She couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. She couldn't bathe herself. She had so much pain. And she said to me after I had a group healing activity with her, she said, Jerry, are there any pills I should be taking? And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. But I said, yes, I think there are. And I mentioned something called an adaptogen, which is like a group of herbal vitamins, if you will, supplements. And she said, is there any danger of me taking these supplements? I said, the only side effects we know of is that it can lower your blood pressure or it could increase libido, sex drive. So she said, I probably should try then this to see if I can bounce back and get my health back. 6 months later, I went to the home to visit her when I was in that town. And she said, where's my husband right now? She's blind, by the way. And she said, where's my husband? I said, he's out in the kitchen. She said, good. I need to ask you, Jerry. Those pills that I can't pronounce that you told me to take? She said, well, I've been taking them for the whole 6 months. And I've given some to, I won't name his name, but my husband as well. And she said, you know, things seem to be getting better in the bedroom for the both of us. Do you think we should maybe double the dose? I said, if your heart's good, go for it. Wow. You know, here she was in her late 80s. Her husband just turned 90, and their sexuality is reemerging. She had to have the idea planted in her brain that she could find her physical health again, and that sexuality was a possibility.
Could the pills have been a placebo?
They were. I'm confident they were.
Wow. Which kind of brings us back to trauma. Because trauma is so much. Now, I'm asking this, I'm not saying this. Is trauma really about hanging on to something that you really need to let go of?
I'd word it a little bit differently. I would say to overcome trauma, we do need to keep it and learn how to integrate it into our life. It happened. It's part of our life story. The question is it a dead-end story or is it a story of ongoing change? And once we've understood that I can't change history, the trauma happened to me, and I'm going to turn it into something useful, and I'm going to find meaning and purpose from this event or a series of events, then people do very, very well. But they have to integrate it, not kick it out of their life. Sometimes when I work with people who have trauma and alcoholism, they say, well, my alcoholism is going to kill me. It'll be the death of me. And I say to them, I suggest you embrace your alcoholism. And that makes them nervous. And I say, what I mean by embrace it is to search into all your addictive patterns and behaviors. Find all the insights, knowledge, meaning behind the choices you made. Alcoholism is your teacher. Make friends with your teacher.
You ever heard that before?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Bob, any questions as we approach the end of the day today?
No, it's just not enough time to offer all the questions that I have.
Well, I got through one of my questions. I don't know how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10, 11 questions, and I got through one. So
he's just going to have to come back, right?
Yeah, hopefully you'll choose to come back. All right. Geral Blanchard. It's not Gerald. It's Geral, middle initial T, Blanchard. His books, Transcending Trauma, Post-Traumatic Growth Following Physical, Sexual, and Emotional Abuse, and also Ancient Ethics for Today's Healers. Program brought to you by the good folks at Unity Point, Powell CDC. If you need help, if you know someone that needs help, call, write, email. Do what you can do to get our attention. We promise we're listening. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. Geral, thanks for being here. Very much appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Lila, see you next week.
Yep.
Robert, I'll see you next week. Ryan, thanks for producing. I'll see you tomorrow. And until I see you again, think of that one person that you just can't seem to forgive. You can't get that horrible taste in your mouth out without thinking about them. Tonight, drop to your knees and forgive. And that's how you'll be forgiven. See you tomorrow.
Restoring